This is the CreaseCast.
All right, everybody. I've shotgunned a drink. I'm good to go. Lachlan's got his seventh cold brew of the day going.
Yes, I do. This is the only thing keeping me going for the show today.
Yeah, we need it because we are coming off two incredibly difficult games to watch. The Canucks rounded out the first two-game series against the Flames in possibly the worst fashion they could. They get shut out in game one, and then in game two they get an early lead and squander it in the most deflating way imaginable, in the most Canuck way possible.
You said it.
So we have quite a bit to talk about in just two games. So let's just rip off the Band-Aid and just like, I don't know, it's kind of tough to pick a starting point just because of how like miserable everything really was. So let's just start with the players. Like that's probably the easiest place to start. And one of the players to come out of these last two games with a lot of ire drawn upon him by fans and sort of the coaches, not really as much, but semi, was Elias Pettersson. So there's a bit of ire drawn towards him last night by TSN 1040 late night host Rob Fay. He decided to have a little rant that implied his Instagram and social media antics over the summer were the reason for his poor performance in the first four games of the season.
This is where that's coming from. Like,
yeah, it's just really funny.
So just to give a little bit of insight here, when we were prepping the notes for the show, Cody put in a little note about the Instagram and Pettersson stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Where is this from? Who's suggesting this? No, there's no way anybody is actually out here suggesting that someone's Instagram is a distraction for their hockey playing skills, let alone a guy like Elias Pettersson.
Yeah.
But now I'm finding out right the second that no, this is a very real thing, and it's not only is it real, it's also on like an actual sports station. This isn't just some bad Facebook comment or something.
So yeah, this is the thing. Rob Fay is like a big hype man. A lot of his like shtick is like, you know, the hot takes that he clips.
I am aware.
Show so he can get like generate interest in his show.
I do know of Rob
is
Fay.
Always on board with it because he's a huge pro wrestling guy.
Hell
and
yeah.
seeing those two go at it is like really funny on Twitter because it's like it's like the heel versus the face like all the time. So that's always really funny. But yes, I check Facebook comments after the games and before games, and there are legitimately people that are like is Instagram and social media ruining Elias Pettersson's playing ability, which is like the dumbest thing. Like, yeah, he's had a really tough start to this season, you know, 1 point in 4 games, and just kind of looks frustrated and stressed out when he's playing. But it
highlighted by that slash on Sean Monahan in the late in the second period. That was a big highlight point there because I mean you never see Elias Pettersson lash out like that. He is very calm. He's very collected. He's often the one taking those kinds of slashes and those kinds of like hits and stuff from other players because he frustrates them. So to see him take that, I would say, especially for me, just to see that happen was like shocking, and that was the kicker of saying of looking at the wheels have fallen off here because and that was even before the puck went in the net. Like for that second goal, that 5-on-3, that with the Tyler Myers punch and everything, we can talk about that later. But
great punch.
But like as soon as I saw that, as soon as you see the player who is the best player on your team, not only at just skill-wise, but at being able to keep an even keel over the course of an entire regular season, to see him lash out like that, that immediately just clicked, okay, something's wrong. Something's not clicking here. This team is not happy right now. None of them are. Because when that guy lashes out, there's something behind it, you know?
Yeah, and just for like, if any listeners are of the mindset like that the fine was overboard, like I encourage you to take off your Homer glasses and actually rewatch the clip of his slash on Monahan, it is just so unnecessary and dangerous. And sure, it didn't hit Monahan in the face, but if the roles were reversed and it was Monahan taking an angry slash to Pettersson's chest from along the boards,
people would be calling for his head.
Market would have blown up like no other, that there was no call or whatever. Yeah. So, and get real.
And at the end of the day, it's a $4,000 fine. Big deal. Yeah. Like, really, it's not that big a deal. It doesn't go on his. He's not a repeat. It doesn't label him like a repeat offender in the eyes of the league or anything. Yeah. It has no effect on like future issues or anything like that. It's $4,000 out of the $900,000 he's making. To a lot of us, obviously, $4,000 is a nice amount of money. Is a lot of money, but in the grand NHL scheme of things, it's barely any. It's a pardon the play on words here. I guess it's a slap on the wrist.
It's like a day's salary for him gone.
Yeah,
he'll never notice. So don't worry.
It's not that big a deal.
You don't need to defend him on Twitter or Facebook or Grindr or wherever you're defending him. He's gonna survive.
Yeah. I don't know whether or not. I don't actually even know whether or not I thought it was like, oh, this deserved extra or something like that. I don't think I'd gotten to that. I hadn't gotten to that point of questioning by the time the actual fine came down. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, who cares? Yeah. Like, whatever. It didn't bother me.
Play. It was a whatever play. Like he shouldn't have done it, and I'm sure
I frankly didn't even know he could get suspended.
You saw it when he.
Oh, go ahead. We cut out. What did you say?
Yeah, I said you could see it when he went to the box. Like they kind of cut to his face, and like just his entire body language was like he was embarrassed that he got that mad, basically, because he was sitting in the penalty box, head down, just like.
That's immediately sign of I can't believe I did that.
Yeah, because usually he's pretty head up, and like I think it was Hoglander who had a mistake in like the first Calgary game, or maybe it was in the second
Edmonton game, the chin up
game, and he's like, he's giving him a chin up because he's like, don't worry about that kind of stuff. So it's like when he's the one that's like just like head down, it's like he recognizes that he's having a tough series, and I think most Canucks fans thought like. When he faced the Flames, like they're not as top heavy as the Oilers are. Like the matchup should be a bit easier for him. Like he's not gonna struggle physically against Gaudreau like the way he's gonna struggle physically against like McDavid or Draisaitl. But he struggled again, and you could tell the frustration was just like killing him every shift. And I don't know. Do you think?
It's so hard.
I wrote in our notes as a joke, will he ever be good again?
No.
But the real question here that we wanted to
let's
cover
not ask that.
Are fans right to be overreacting right now, or do you think it's just like it's way too early?
It is early. It is really early. I think some of the overreaction I think there's definitely been a bunch of overreaction to how he's struggled so far. I mean, it is concerning. Like if you want to say it's concerning, that's perfectly understandable. It is a little. It's always a concern when your top line center and a guy who is highly touted as your best player on the team, as well as one of the best players in the NHL. Only has one assist right now.
Yeah, the point totals are not favorable to the Canucks right now.
To anyone for that matter. So the whole team is struggling. It's from top to bottom. You're getting a little bit of production from bottom lines at some times, but of course that's not going to carry, especially with this group. That's not going to carry you to victories. Yeah. And so you need them to be. You need your top six to be successful. However, I will say that I do feel like there's at least like a small nugget of truth somewhere in there, just in the sense of like no one should panic about Pettersson, but I do get the concern when I see, like I've been watching a lot of other different teams during this start and everything, and even like players on teams who are struggling, like Crosby on the Penguins, McDavid on the Oilers, and I guess to an extent Matthews on the Leafs, although they've been pretty okay. They've been fine so far. Even while their teams are struggling, they seem to be finding ways to to rack points up and hit the back of the net. And it does concern me that Pettersson isn't there. Like, that he's not able to kind of, like, that he's not able to just kind of, I guess, get a point or two without even trying, you know? And maybe that's because maybe that's because I'm asking too much of him. Maybe that's because I don't know. That part does concern me a little bit, but not enough to make a big deal about it. I think he'll be fine. It's just a matter of time. And you know how it is. Like, some guys like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, they had that year where, like, the team was calling them horse shit because they literally just had the worst puck luck in the NHL. And then they went to the Cup final last year. So it can just things can turn on a dime. It just give them the time to figure things out, even if they don't have a lot of it. I think at the very least, by the end of this, like, these next 6 games they have at home against Montreal and Ottawa, he'll be fine. He'll have found his rhythm by that point for sure.
Yeah. Just before we segue to our next player, I'll bring up what Jackson McDonald had said on Roxy Fever that I listened to this morning.
Okay.
And basically, he had said, like, last season, the Canucks top line had like a ridiculous shooting percentage, like 22.5 or something crazy like that shooting percentage. So, like, a regression was always in store for that top line.
In layman's terms, you're scoring on what? One of your every 5 shots, basically.
Yes, which is when you put the math together. Yeah, when you actually, like, add that up, like, I'm only doing this because I know some people are like me and look at the percentages and go, like, brain just kind of starts smoking a little bit. Yeah.
Because I'm like that all the time. And yeah, once you start adding that up, that's a lot of goals. That's a lot, way more than you would realize.
And so what he was saying was basically most fans are probably, like, who are of the mindset, like, Pettersson's one of the best centers in the North Division, and rightly so, but a lot of people are conflating, like, his great, like, offensive numbers last year in a season where they had, like, an outrageous shooting percentage with him being some kind of McDavid level offensive driver talent, when in reality he's probably more like suited for, like, a Pavel Datsyuk type of forward who's like a two-way ace who, like, does produce, but he's not like a Steven Stamkos, Connor McDavid type of offensive producer, which tracks a lot more than what, like, his last season numbers would have indicated.
Really?
So
okay.
They're basically saying, like, the regression was always bound to happen. Yeah. And that this top line last season was shooting like they were Steven Stamkos, like, in his prime, basically.
Now,
and that isn't quite the case. So expectations are, like, way too high because of last season's luck that they had.
I mean, I guess I never really thought about that. But I guess I kind of touched on that when I was on my bit, but, like, I didn't have any of the stats to back it up, just kind of on my own thought process.
Yeah.
I guess that does worry me in the sense of this is your first line center. I mean, Pavel Datsyuk was always great and a highlight reel player, but I don't think he ever led a team on his own. Like, that was never really his thing. He always had some sort of help. I don't think he was.
So if you're, like, based on Brock Besser's play of the last 4 games, like, even though the points haven't been there, like, he looks fucking good. Like,
that's good.
That's good. I think we're seeing a regression. At the same time, we're also seeing a ton of, like, bad luck their way as well. Yeah. Like, that 2-on-1 opportunity they had against the Flames, it was just like the pass was just barely out of reach, like, to the point where Petey should have had, like, easy backhander opportunity, but he just, like, flubbed it and then, like, ate shit.
I think Besser put the pass just a little too far out in front of him, and I saw him because he crashed into the boards, and I think it's because he literally just overextended trying to get to that shot for sure, because it was just too far out in front of him. So I'm not gonna say I don't think he biffed it. It's just Besser just kind of didn't.
He reached way too deep to try and capitalize on the pass that wasn't quite there.
Yeah, Besser, I think it might have been one of those cases where, Besser got a little bit of excited because he saw the play unfolding, like, oh my god, and, like, flipped it just a little bit too, like, put a little bit too much gusto on it, and it just couldn't reach. That's kind of what I saw in that play anyway. I think it looked more like that kind of a case where they kind of could see what was going on, maybe panicked a little bit, and then it just didn't work.
They're gonna panic, especially after 4 games when like all their 5v5 offense came in that first game, basically.
Hell, everybody's panicking at this point.
Yeah, they're looking for something, and like that first period, they had tons of chances to capitalize on opportunities, and it just wasn't coming their way. And against Montreal, like Carey Price, like the goaltending doesn't get any easier.
No, definitely not.
They're gonna have to be a lot better and more opportunistic. They can't be like doing their passing setups and hoping to get those floater shots from the outside. You as a goalie have remarked in our last episode how shots from the point because they were the easiest things to track.
I think we talked about what did we talk about that on the bonus episode, or did we talk about that like after, like when we were like just like hanging out or something?
I don't know.
I think it might have been then. I think it might have been then.
Viewers will have to subscribe to our Patreon and then find out for themselves.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Oh, but then what if we're wrong? Then it's false advertising.
I don't care. Subscribe to our Patreon.
Well, you know what? We've re-mentioned it now. Yeah, I loved it when teams shot from the blue line. I could track those all day. I'm a small goaltender, right? I'm only 5'9". I'm only 5'9", 5'10". And then on skates, like you maybe add an inch or two. Mm-hmm. But I have no problems tracking pucks, like from that size. Even sometimes with a screen, like I could still look around like people to see where the shot's coming from that far out. Plenty of time to react to something or a deflection or what have you. It was when you get those shots in close where all of a sudden I'm panicking a little bit because I might not have the size or the room to cover as many holes. Jacob Markstrom obviously is a goaltender who's huge and covers a lot of net. So not only is you're going to have a very hard time getting a lot of deflections off of him. Although they did get that first goal, the Jake Virtanen goal, that was a deflection. They're only one of the 2 games was a deflection. Right. For sure. Or I guess there were two. I should say there was the second later in the game. But those are rare. Those are rare. You want to make the goaltender, those kind of goalies move. You need to get them moving out in front of the net and expose holes in their equipment there. And they just weren't doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say some of the only chances that they really generated were when they finally got Markstrom moving. And it's almost like the coaching staff kind of forgot, like, oh, by the way, this guy had been in your system for 4 years, 5 years, playing with like all of your best shooters. He knows exactly all of their tendencies. So does who else does? The defenseman that they picked up, Chris Tanev. They know exactly what they're going to do. Like that penalty kill, we can get into that in a bit, but like too predictable. That's all we'll say, and then we'll get into some of the other players.
The power play. I know they really like that shot from like the circles with Horvat where they'll kind of just pass it out for the quick shot, and and a lot of the time that is successful because that is getting the goalie moving, and that is catching them off guard. It's going to be hard to do that against a goalie who knows your tendencies already. Yeah. That's because they'll know, because Markstrom knows that shot's coming already, most likely. Yeah. But also, it's still a distance of a shot. It's still not as close to the net as I would like to see some pucks getting to. Mm-hmm. They did it last year in the playoffs where they were getting a little bit closer and they were getting a few more chances like tight around the goaltender, and especially they found success with that against St. Louis, where there was like points where they would just kind of stop shooting around the net against Minnesota. They just stopped. They weren't shooting enough around the net. And then suddenly it just clicked in their head that getting close, make that goaltender move. And they did that a lot against St. Louis. And that completely cooked Binnington on a lot of shots. And eventually they got things going with against Jake Allen as well, who they'll see most likely at least once again when Montreal comes to town. Those are the kinds of things that the Canucks need to be doing more. But for some reason, they're just really, really adamant about shooting from the blue line, from the far blue line, and from like the top of the circle. They
insist on traffic basically, and it's just like,
which makes no sense because they don't have a lot of players who actually really go into the traffic that much. No. Like they have a couple, but most of their best players are sticking to the outside because that's where they're taking their shots from.
Mm-hmm. And they're used to the rebounds, right? And it's just like you're not getting rebounds if the puck can never even get through.
Right. Some goaltenders, some defensive systems, that will work, but the teams that they're seeing right now are not. It's not working. If you can't, like, Calgary really knows how to seal those up defensively, even without Chris Tanev on the ice, even without a Canuck that knows all your tendencies. You can't be doing that all the time. You have to get that puck in close, and you have to force rebounds. You have to get rebounds and trap and get shots and get those, like, garbage goals. They're not pretty, but they count for the same amount of points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, for sure. We'll just move on to the next forward. We'll try and, like, I don't know, we'll split up forwards and D.
Sure.
So one of the forwards that I thought, like, even despite, like, there's, like, obviously, like, asterisks on all this, like, in spite of the results, in spite of the lack of production, all that stuff, that kind of applies to everyone we're talking about in this, like, for the pros and the cons, basically.
Yes.
Niels Höglander still, for me, remains, like, top 3 for the Canucks forwards. Like, you can see it in the videos that I clip in my Twitter that I will plug in our outro, but the guy, for 5'9", 190 pounds or whatever he is an absolute workhorse along the boards. Even when he's beat or if he loses the puck, he spins out, rejoins the play, and he works his ass off to get the puck back. And 99 times out of 100, he's like generating a chance for his team based off of his work. And man, like, I don't know how many times I've tweeted it in the past 4 games, but you need to get this kid on the penalty kill. Like, the penalty kill for the Canucks is so based on just staying static and standing still and just waving your puck around. They need someone that's actually going to be a hound on passes. And
yes,
that's him to a T. Like, Tyler Mott used to be that, where he'd be just kind of like all over guys. I haven't really seen that in the first 4 games. He's kind of taking the Beagle Sutter approach, where it's just like stand still, wave your stick about, chase the possessor, and then hope you can pick off a pass. But it's like, you can't rely on that all the time. And looking at their PK stats, like, it's pretty obvious it isn't working at all. And
that penalty kill got absolutely roasted by the Flames, and a lot of that. JD Burke tweeted this out. Tweeted some, like, along. I'm paraphrasing, but, like, along these lines of how it's really. You're really watching the Canucks get exposed for what they can't do, what they're not able to do when they don't have the most elite of the elite goaltending behind them. Yeah. And that's not a slight at Demko or Braden Holtby. Neither of them were bad. Like, their stats might not be fantastic right now. Like, I think as a group, as a tandem, they're sub 900 right now.
They're sub 900, yeah.
But that's not indicative of their play at all. They're doing the best they can, but the problem is the Canucks, the way that they play, are asking them to be basically Hall of Fame caliber on a nightly basis, which right now they can't do.
Yeah.
They can be great goaltenders for sure, and Demko is going to be a great goalie in this league as you give him the time to develop and the opportunities.
Yeah, but under this defensive environment, like, it's going to be bad news for, like, the first stretch until they figure out what the hell they're doing, basically.
Right now, what you're seeing is the Canucks with Markstrom before he really got into the MVP goaltender he became. You're seeing him when he was just starting out as a starting goaltender. He struggled a little bit. He would let in a soft goal every now and then. Like, I remember people wanted to kill Markstrom for, like, all the early goals he was letting in, even though it wasn't, like, entirely his fault. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing the Canucks go back at the time when they had a goaltender who was just still learning and still getting into the ropes and everything, or as they were still kind of getting adjusted to starting minutes, because it's new and different for them, you know? Even with Holtby, it's a case of a goaltender who's still kind of having to refine their game again, because they've had some difficult times in Washington playing behind a defense that wasn't the best, that wasn't necessarily the best anymore.
And this one isn't much better.
And this one is worse,
it's
arguably.
Possibly much, 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 much worse.
Yes. And so you're running into, and that's the situation the Canucks are running into. They're expecting to get Markstrom level goaltending every single night because that's what they've gotten for the last 2 years. But right now they're getting what Demko and Holtby can provide, which is great goaltending. It's just not. It's just not. I'm gonna bail you out every single game of the week, with a rare off night, in between. Kind of goaltending, and you can't win hockey games that way. As much as it's an easier problem to solve than say what the Oilers are dealing with right now, where they don't have a goalie at all. Basically, they have Mikko Koskinen, but he can't carry. That's it. He is not going to hold the fort for 56 games. You're going to burn him out really fast before you even come close to that number. But for the Canucks, they have to find a way to fix that penalty kill because right now it's costing them games fully. And because it's just, there's nothing going. They're not really doing anything. They're kind of just, like you said, they're just standing there and kind of trying to block passes and it's not working. And then the couple of the times that they have been moving, it's bad. Like there was the one shot, like there was the one, like the first goal of the game, I think this was the Giordano goal, I think, in the third period, where literally the whole four-man group was
the net.
Behind the net.
And he passes through his legs to Beagle, who's just like completely at a loss for what to do. Yeah, it's
why?
It's
like,
baffling.
why is there no one out front? I'm not even saying he had to be right on top of Giordano like a hawk or anything. Why is there not at least one guy standing out in front? Why are all four of you chasing two players? Where's the communication? Why is the
one guy hugging the red line? You know what I mean? Like why is he that far up?
Yeah.
Like back up. There's no one else there. You don't need to be there. You need to be watching the forwards if they pinch down. And sure enough, it goes through his feet, and it's the easiest goal of Giordano's career.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a far shot, and maybe you can argue that Demko should have gotten a little bit more of a piece on it, but still, he shouldn't have had to deal with it in the first place.
No, he shouldn't be having to react to a point-blank shot from the defenseman coming off the line because your own defenseman is like passing to his tape. Like it's a perfect one-timer setup. What's the stat right now? 66.7%. They're 24th in the league right now. So amazingly,
24th? Who's worse?
So amazingly, they're not the worst in the Canadian division right now. So Winnipeg and Ottawa are below them. At least when I had checked this morning,
based on how many penalties, because the Canucks have taken a lot of penalties also, which is not
I'd have to check. But regardless, how many goals have they given up? They 7 or something? 5 out of 7?
Too many. Let's just say that it's too many.
And it's compounding in a way where your mainstay minutes guys, so Edler, Schmidt, Hamonic, like all three dudes who regularly chew through like 14 to 18 to now 24 minutes of ice time, like regularly, are playing 14 minutes of that shorthanded, and neither of those three.
Alex Edler played 8 minutes on a shorthanded. Which is nuts. That's way too much. He shouldn't have to.
He's in the final year of his deal. He's going to be trying to play out of his mind, but it's like he's old.
He only played 12. He only played 12 minutes, basically. If I'm reading this correctly, he only played 12 minutes
of 5v5.
Of 5v5.
And that's like I said, it's a compounding effect where now Quinn Hughes is asked to pick up the slack, pick up 21 minutes of 5v5 time with like minute 40 long shifts, and you can tell he looks exhausted on his shifts as the games progress.
He's young player, but he can't go that much. Like, you can't just have him go like that. It doesn't even, no matter how well conditioned you are.
He's like one of the best defensemen in the North Division, but like he can only do so much, and especially when it's like the 5v5 minutes you're going to get, Quinn, they're going to be against top competition because everyone's going to try and line match you when you don't have last change. And then you're going to be paired with like Hamonic, who's coming off of a giant penalty kill shift, so he's going to be completely winded. Oh, by the way, he hasn't played in a year. Like, you just like these compounding effects are just like setting up your defensive core to be like incapable of preventing goals. And Quinn Hughes, who's like elite at like back checking and stopping chances, just looks gassed every shift. And now you have like a player like Levy, who like he was
7 minutes
fine.
Well, 8 minutes.
You're sheltering him in such a way too that now on top of factoring your penalty kill and a bunch of elderly men playing,
he's gonna play with somebody who's tired. His pairing is tired,
and he's always playing against subpar competition because the coach doesn't trust him to play against top. So it's like you're adding all these little asterisks to how you deploy your defensemen, and all it's leading to is an exhausted defense core that can't fucking stop goals against.
Right.
Their timing is completely off because you're having Tyler Myers go from, a minute 40 playing with Levy to, a penalty kill shift where he's,
playing with
Edler, with Edler, and they're all rotating on lines with Hughes. Like no one has chemistry because like it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you guys trying to accomplish? Are you trying to be an elite penalty killing team or an elite 5v5 team? Because the way you're deploying your guys and the way you don't trust certain players in certain roles means you're not good at either. You're just like,
and frankly, that all comes down to discipline. Like at the end of the day, because if you're a well-disciplined team, and I'm not even including the Pettersson thing in here because that's a one-off because we all know that's a one-off moment. Like I'd be surprised if we saw anything like that from him again for the rest of the year.
Maybe if he doesn't score in another 5 games, we might be seeing some.
Okay, Captain Negative. Let's keep things light here. A lot of the penalties the Canucks took last night were bad penalties. Yeah, you can make the argument that some of them were soft. The refereeing wasn't the best, but for me, like I look at the Tyler Myers, like the punch to Matthew Tkachuk, right? Yes, Matthew Tkachuk flopped, right? Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk flopped, sold a call. But that's his thing. And Drancer put it perfectly. That is literally the thing he does best. Yeah. Why on earth would you he's being a little bit of a rat in front of the net. Don't let that get to you. Myers has to know better than I'm going to punch this guy with my glove
after the whistle. When the refs are staring at the scrum. Like, what do you expect?
And of course you're going to get called for that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? You should know better than that. Those are the kinds of penalties that are completely unnecessary, don't do anything to help your team, and to put them down another goal because they got scored on a 5-on-3. Pettersson was already in the box at that point. Those are the kinds of penalties that are 100% avoidable. And yet they're getting like a bunch of them. Like they shot themselves in the foot multiple times in that second period where they were just taking these bad penalties and when you do that, you're gassing your team more over the course of the year because those penalties add up. Those penalties and the amount of time you're spending trying to chase the puck, even if it doesn't look like the penalty kill chases the puck a lot, they're working and they're getting tired and you're tiring them out faster over the course of the season.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff you can't do if you're this group, especially with your penalty kill being on the older side as it is. And the older, slower side as it is. You can't be doing that. You have to find your discipline. And you have to find your discipline and you have to flip the tables on them and be able to get them to throw the other teams off their game and make Matthew Tkachuk take a penalty on you because that's the only way you're going to succeed at this point.
As we say all this too, we throw an asterisk on all of our critiques of the penalty kill, and we remind our audience that the penalty kill has more goals scored for it than the.
You know what? That's true.
So it's true. Like ignore all our critiques. The penalty kill is fine at 66.7%. Don't worry about it.
Now in the power play's defense, that first power play did look better. They looked better in the last game. It looked better,
infinitely better with JT Miller out there.
Yes, they looked much more confident, much more comfortable.
Yes.
They were getting more. They got more shots to the net, which is what I wanted to see from them. They did get a lot more shots to the net, and that's already a nice improvement. Even if it wasn't going in, that's a good improvement. At least they're getting stuff on net.
Unfortunately, all that offense came in the first period, and then they just wilted and fell apart.
Yes. Even I will say power play 2 looks a little bit better now that Hoglander's here. I will say they suddenly look a little bit, they no longer look like they're just out there to kind of waste some time. They actually look like they could actually put the puck in the net.
Like all times last year.
Last year.
It just looked like killing.
It was kind of the way we all just were like, oh, okay, power play 2's out. They're just going to kill the clock here, not get scored on themselves. Yeah. Just maybe tire them out with some passing, the defense out with some passing and whatnot, maybe get a shot. If they don't, as long as they don't end up with a shorthanded goal, successful for PP2.
Yeah.
On this one, this year, well, at least with this group, which I believe was Virtanen, Gaudette, Hoglander, Schmidt, and Tanner Pearson. Thank you. They look like they could do something. They look like, if given the time and given the attention that Power Play 1 gets, they're not going to score at the same clip, obviously. But they could do something too. And if you can get Power Play 2 going, that's a huge benefit to you. Especially if you can get it, because all of a sudden now you're way open up your possibilities on how many times you could actually get goals and actually get contributions from other players. Jake Virtanen had one of the best plays of that game, and
that's how shitty the game was. Is that Jake Virtanen had the best fucking play?
Hey, that was a good play for most NHLers. That was a nice play.
Oh no, I'm not discrediting the play. I'm just saying it's a bad sign for the Vancouver Canucks. It's that great Tortorella quote where I don't even remember who it was, had like a 3-point night, and then
I have some Tort stuff later.
It was like it's great for him, bad for us.
That was David Booth.
Yeah, and he's basically just saying like
I think that was David Booth.
It's a bad sign when like your worst player has like a good night and everyone else sucks. And that's kind of what that game was. Is like great for Virtanen, because everyone like leading up to that fourth game, everyone was like, "Where's Virtanen? When's he gonna show up?" That like I can't believe we got rid of him instead of. I mean, those criticisms.
We kept Virtanen, and they won't, and they definitely aren't going away with Tyler Toffoli coming to town.
No, that is terrifying.
But I'll say this: when I was watching that power play, I remember he took the puck, he carried it up toward back kind of. He did like the circle back towards the blue line, and then cut back towards the net, sort of thing. And I remember just kind of sitting there and being like, "Okay, he's gonna shoot. It's gonna go right into the goalie's chest. Whistle, and that's it, right?" Like that was my initial thought, because that's what he normally does.
That's what he would always do.
And you could kind of see the defense anticipated. The Flames defense kind of anticipated that, because they almost sort of. They a little bit opened up that lane in front to Markstrom, where they were kind of like saying, "Go ahead, take the shot."
Take a shot into his glove, because that's what you do every time.
Take the shot. And you could tell that they didn't have any sort of anticipation, and I didn't either. Gaudette, meanwhile, snuck behind that one defenseman.
Gets queued up for the 1T.
Nice pass. Perfect pass right to Gaudette. Shot doesn't go in.
No.
But
because
it's Markstrom. Oh, Markstrom.
Canucks could use a goalie like that.
They could. Couldn't everybody though? And yet I actually kind of almost leapt out of my seat. I was like, whoa, I didn't see it coming. I saw no clue that he was going to make that pass, and I was shocked when he did it. As much as shocked as I think the Flames defense was, and even maybe Jacob Markstrom didn't know that was coming either. And just kind of was just like, oh my God.
Holy shit.
Yes. And that's great. That's a great little step in the direction that you want to kind of see from Jake Virtanen. You want to see more Canucks, honestly, take those kinds of ways. Because that was a shot, that was a pass right to the front of the net that created a rebound. Even if there was no one there to receive it at that point, that's the kind of stuff you want to see. And I liked that I saw it from Virtanen. Now it's just a matter of, okay, how do you get him to do this on a regular basis? How do you kind of drill that in of, yes, this is exactly what I want to see from you. Keep doing that. And on 5-on-5 and seeing those kinds of lanes open up, because that was that's a smart play. That's not just a fourth line guy could do that. No, that's a hockey IQ smart play, which is one of the things that sometimes he gets the most, that I know I've for sure definitely given him a hard time for, is that's the thing he struggles with the most.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that I was saying earlier. It's just the compounding issues. So like Virtanen and Gaudette have like a great first period, and then in the second period, all the penalties start compounding and shifts start changing, and now you see the Canucks in a disadvantageous position to the point where they're constantly playing Pettersson and the Miller line or Quinn Hughes to try and even things up, and that third line barely plays. Yeah. And so even though they were arguably the best forwards for the Canucks in that first period at generating chances,
they got no more chances.
Coaching staff were like, nope, we need to try and get that first line. Yeah, so the first line gets more chances. I think Virtanen ended the night with like 8 minutes of ice time or something like that.
Yeah, 9:23. He had a 9:23.
Yeah, and it's like that's fine. It's whatever. Like if there weren't penalty minutes, like you're only adding like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes maybe of ice time to his, total. But like on a game like that where you could kind of see like maybe confidence is building because of what a great period like they had together, like trying to create something offensively, then it just dies instantly because you have a bunch of exhausted defensemen unable to break out the puck, and everyone starts taking penalties because they have no options. So It's like they need to figure that out. Like I was listening to Canucks conversation, and they were floating the idea of getting Jack Rathbone in on a third pair to try and just like shake things up, get you an offensively minded, good skating third pair defenseman to play with Myers. That's something, right? But like they need to get away from the sheltering, because the way that they've arranged their penalty killing units, like it's just not going to fly. Like 56 games. At the end of the day, like that's going to be their Achilles heel. Is like at the
end of
guys.
At the end of the day, you could put Rathbone in that third pairing, but if you're not going to play him, it doesn't matter. Nothing's going to change. You have to play him. You have to play. And even if say you gave Juolevi some opportunities, who's to say you couldn't get some offense out of him? Again, I'm still of the mind that you could maybe throw somebody on that right side, have Rathbone and Juolevi in the lineup. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Go full offense. Let's go.
The coach would never trust him at all.
You've got 3 games against Ottawa. Come on.
We say that, but at the same time, they've scored 7 goals in 4 games or whatever the fuck it is. Like, it's just not good enough. Maybe 9.
I mean,
it doesn't matter. Like,
they've scored 11.
The coach won't trust them.
They've scored 2 more goals than the Canucks that might actually, you know what? I don't think I've refreshed since they played their next game.
Oh, so it's even better.
It might be worse. Yes, it is now. It's only it's 1 more goal. It's 10. They're at 10. They have 10 goals for. Canucks have 9. So it's it was correct. So it was correct. In 3 games they have 10 goals. The Canucks have 9 and 4. Oof. Yeah,
it's a tough stat, especially when you remember 5 of them came in 1 game.
And Ottawa has points in 2 of 3. The Canucks have points in 1 of 4. It's not enough.
Yeah, it's not great. So, I mean, this is where I get frustrated with the deployment aspect of it.
We've done a lot of that today. We've done a lot of getting that into play.
I hate to kind of to circle back to the same thing, but I just want to harp on this one more time. Is that whenever last season when I was reviewing Comets games, I was always of the mindset like, this isn't a league where you're playing to win. Like, Reed Boucher doesn't need shorthanded time. He doesn't need all the power play time. Neither does Sven Baertschi. Neither does, so-and-so from the 4th line of the ECHL. This is a development league at the end of the day. And one of the things that they developed was penalty killers. And 2 of them are in the Canucks active roster right now in Juolevi and Jalen Chatfield. And I am not advocating for Jalen Chatfield to come in for Myers or anything by any stretch. But you've clearly established that Juolevi can be an effective and efficient penalty killer in the AHL level at least. And it's a situation that he can get put in where he doesn't get subjected to getting burned on the outside, because he's not being parked at the front of the blue line and getting walked on the outside. He's sitting around the left circle and he's tracking a man. That's super easy. And he sacrifices his body all the time.
And at this point, your penalty kill's not working. Why not just try something? Why not just try something new and see if it goes well? What's the worst that can happen? Another goal goes in.
Edler getting 8 minutes.
Changing right now.
Yeah, instead of Edler getting 8 minutes of shorthanded time, why not try the kid that you've pretty much relegated to we're going to baby you duty? Well, why don't you stick to what he's good at? Like, give him that niche role that made him successful in Utica. Like, why not try to transition that to, the Canucks roster? Because otherwise, like you said, why aren't you just playing Rathbone then? If the minutes that he's playing are inconsequential and you're just asking him to not be a minus in the ledger, then
that's a waste of a spot.
Then it's a waste of a spot. Exactly. He's in his last year of his ELC, and you're sheltering him against like the fourth lines with Myers every night. So it's like you're not learning anything new about him by not testing him against, teams' power plays or whatever. You're just like basically saying, we don't trust you to do anything else. Just try not to hurt us. So it's like,
which if you're a playoff team, you shouldn't be at that point anymore. Like, it's one thing when you're a team that's just, when you're a team like in the basement that's just killing time until you develop and draft and develop, and you're just spelling guys like with the Canucks had Michael Del Zotto on the team and and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, he
that
was like Michael Del Zotto was frustrating at times, but like I didn't really care because he was just a stopgap. Who cared like if things didn't work perfectly in that direction? Yeah. It was 2 years that the Canucks were already not going to be that great. Big deal. Right now, you're a team that believes in yourself to be a postseason bound team that can fight for a cup. Yeah, and so you absolutely under no circumstances can have any of your top six defensemen just be there to fill as a seat filler. That's every
you need
team
utility out of your players basically. So it's like if you have a player on your team who's like utility is like the area you're struggling the most,
throw him.
Why aren't you trying it then? Like it is fucking time to go. Throw him on that second PK group and get Schmidt out of there so he can play more 5v5 with Hughes or something.
Yeah.
Do whatever you can so that like your players who are like struggling in 5v5 get the time they need. Pull Edler off the first unit. He's fucking ancient. He's I say that as he's like 3 years older than me only.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Ugh. I mean, hey, you.
I'm no pro athlete, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, if you want to call yourself ancient, that's cool. We did. Now I will say we got a question. We got a question this week. We actually got a listener question. And I will say it's not the most fun question, but it's a question. We never get asked. This is from Lewis or at Santa
Tozaki.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. They asked, is the coaching staff gone by mid-February or even end of January if this team keeps up the slump? There is no way Benning or the ownership would sit for that long without making a drastic change. I know we talked about this briefly last night when the question came in, but I want to hear your thoughts.
End of January is only like a week and a half away. So they would have to lose their Montreal series, all three, to get shut out every single game for the next week and a half to maybe see the coach get fired. Maybe. And even then, if the GM is jumping ship on the coach that soon, that's like a death knell to the team. That's like the team would like lose it. They'd be freaked.
See, that's why I'm gonna say flat out, no, Travis Green's not going anywhere. Yeah. I don't even care if they go, if they could straight up go they could lose every single game the rest of this month and like maybe even and a good amount of the ones in the next month, frankly, I don't think Travis Green is getting fired, and here's why. If you're Jim Benning and you go to ownership and you say, hey, coach isn't working, we need another one, right? And management is going to very rightfully go, well, hold on. This is your second coach in the however many years it's been since he's been here. I guess 7 now. I think this is season 7. This is your second coach. This guy was considered a coach of the year by a lot of people last year. He got them through 2 rounds of the playoffs. What do you mean he's not working? And I think if Benning were to go say we need to fire the coach to ownership, I think he'd actually just be
shooting inadvertently
like
Travis Green.
Inadvertently would just be loading up the guillotine for himself because as soon as you say that, that's ownership's going to start asking the questions of, why isn't this team ready? Why do we need to go to find another new coach? Are you sure that this isn't just because you didn't build a good enough team for this guy? And I think the minute you start getting into that conversation, you're like, if you're Jim Benning, you're cooked. So I think he's not going to take that chance because that's his own job security entirely gone. I
want to agree with you.
I think it's more likely. I think we could potentially see. I mean, like, not by the end of this season, not by the middle, not anywhere during the season, I should say, but like at the end of the season. Like, keep in mind, remember, Alain Vigneault was a Dave Nonis hire. Was hired by Dave Nonis. Dave Nonis got let go when the Aquilinis came in like a couple years after the Aquilinis came in. The Canucks missed the playoffs made the playoffs in 2007 with Roberto Luongo having the best season of all time. Missed in 2008 because they missed in 2008. Nonis got fired. Mike Gillis came in. He kept Vigneault on board. Wasn't his hire. He kept him on board anyway, and they kept going. And they went to 5 straight playoff appearances and a Stanley Cup final, 2 President's Trophies. So I think it's much. So the Aquilinis have a history of being like, we don't mind letting go of a general manager and keeping a coach who we think is doing a decent job. They've shown that they don't need to clean house on that kind of a decision. So there is no reason why they couldn't theoretically, if this situation came up, and I think this is us all overreacting to 4 games right now.
Yeah,
but
big asterisk, just 4
games. Big asterisk. Big asterisk. But if that sort of situation did ever come up, the Aquilinis could very easily go and have a past history of being willing to go, we're going to find a new GM on the condition that they keep our coach, or that they at least give the coach a chance, you know?
Yeah. The only counter I would have to any of that is, and I blame Uncle Elite, I think it was Uncle Elite, or maybe it was Taj 1944 on Twitter, who said maybe there's a reason why Travis Green hasn't got an extension, so that if things go really sideways due to the cap management getting totally bungled, they can just fire Travis and blame him, which would be really, really a shame if that actually did happen. I don't know if it would happen, but I want to be optimistic like you. But
I think that'd be an all-time dumb decision. Like,
but unfortunately, this is a management group known for making very dumb decisions when.
But again, management would still have to go to ownership to make that kind of a decision. They can't do it without saying. They can't just be like, "Hey, we fired the coach, just so you know," like in an email. Okay, bye. Like, they can't do that. They have to. You have to run that up the flagpole. And I think the second you do that, you're actually just hanging yourself out to dry at that point.
Also, Aquilini did put out his like season letter to season ticket holders. That was basically like, we're taking a step forward and the goal is playoffs. So in his mind too, if he hears like, my coach can get it done with this team, or I need to sign X player for X million because like I haven't set him up enough, I think he is the
start
type
asking
where,
questions.
I think he's at the point too where like after the Gillis firing, I almost want to say like Aquilini had like a big enough ego where he was like, I don't want people to think that I'm some meddling GM, and so he objectively
that was a big question for a while,
and that's why he stuck with Jim for so long, to give him the leash that he probably should have given Gillis after their cup run in their heyday. And now we're at a point where it's like, okay, last season, if you want to consider that the start of the heyday, Aquilini doesn't have the time for taking another step back.
No,
ready to go.
Not.
He's ready to start making money off of playoff revenue.
Yeah.
If he finds out that all the money he spent the last 7 years was, prepping himself for another step back.
Yeah.
No. That isn't going to bode well for old JB, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, no. I'm going to say flat out, there's no way that you'd have to have an otherworldly bad season, and even then that might be not enough to do it.
Knock on wood. We didn't just jinx the season.
Thank God my whole desk is... Well,
Yeah, if I can just have a second here, just to remind our listeners, since we've started this podcast, we've had
don't remind them.
We've had one team have their season delayed. We've had the Capitol building.
Shut up.
We have some more news to break into that will also remind people of what's happened since we started doing a podcast.
What is the one rule about when you're having bad luck? Don't ever say, how can it get any worse? You never say that. Never. 2020 should have taught us that because it's been going on for because it's been going on for 13 months. This is still 2020. This is still March 2020. Have you learned nothing? Don't say, how can it get worse?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
okay. Now let's get off the Canucks stuff because they've been said. But hey, I'll say this. I'll say this though. They're gonna find some good. They're gonna find a good stride here, coming back to Vancouver and everything against Montreal. I don't think they're gonna sweep or anything, but I'm gonna say that they'll have a much better time playing at home, and I think it'll really bring some comfort back to them.
That's the positivity we love to hear. And if there was one positive to take away from the Calgary series, it was the picture of Quinn Hughes and his former housemate Matt Tkachuk engaged in a scrum outside along the boards.
Quinn Hughes is having out of all the players in the 4 games, he's having a great time. Guy looks like he's having the time of his life, which gives me a lot of hope because
it's the cutest picture because it's just we as
he's just
critics and observers of the games are like, man, they're just struggling, nothing's going right, and then they have this picture of Quinn Hughes and he is just so
beaming.
Happy to
shades of Ben
muck
Hutton.
Things up with Tkachuk. It is so wonderful. Bless that boy.
Yeah, absolute shades of Ben Hutton, who is just always just having a great day. Every day, every day is Friday Friday for Quinn Hughes. It's Friday after work. You're like, yes, we're gonna go out. We're gonna have some drinks. We're gonna play some games. It's gonna be a great night, guys. Let's go. And hey, that gives me hope that they'll be fine because if he's having a good time,
it's a good sign. If he's miserable, then it's oh fuck.
Then the alarms go off.
We've broken this boy.
Yeah, no.
Let's get into the other happy news. The first 3-game series for the Canucks is coming up starting tomorrow, which I'm pretty hyped for because Montreal has been really fun to watch just as a team.
Yeah. I've been very low on
to
Montreal.
lose in regulation. They have a good team. They have this kid, Alex Romanov, coming out of nowhere. They have Nick Suzuki just breaking dudes' ankles in every single game. They're a lot of fun to watch.
And yet they are very willing to trade the whole team for Luc-Dubois. Let's just remind that because that will be insane if they do. There seems to be a lot of smoke on that he's gonna end up that he might end up a Canadian. That
would be a terrible trade because I think we discussed this in one of our first or second episodes. Is that the idea or that the PLD trade rumors start with a Nick Suzuki return, and if I'm Marc Bergevin, there's no fucking way I'm trading Nick Suzuki in any PLD is great, but man, I don't know how you could not watch Nick Suzuki in the last 4 games and be this isn't my guy.
I don't think I'm sure Suzuki would be on the no trade in that sort of a situation. I feel I know they're the player that Columbus wants the most, but I wouldn't be surprised if a trade does happen between those two teams even without him. Yeah. I think they'd find common ground somewhere. It might be somebody a little bit more risky. I don't know who that would be. But
they've shown no fear in trading their defensemen, so maybe they trade Alexander Romanov again, or they trade their other young rookie defenseman. Yeah. It worked out pretty brutally for Sergachev.
It really is the eternal curse of the Canadians, or at least it has been ever since, I would say, the Patrick Waugh trade to Colorado, is that they're never seem to be able to get the big name to come to Montreal. Like, they'll get good players. They always get decent players.
How can you say that? They got Tyler Toffoli.
That's true. They did get Tyler Toffoli. That's an A-lister. That is an A-lister.
Yeah.
As we are well aware here in Vancouver. Legendary Vancouver Canuck Tyler Toffoli. I do miss him. But
they could use him right now.
But every year they try for these, like, UFAs, and they try and get them, and they always seem to be that runner-up. They're always they're always just behind some other team in the lineup, whether it's New York for Panarin, whether it's Nashville for Matt Duchene. John Tavares was another one they really wanted. Toronto obviously got him.
Yeah, they're obsessed with, like, trying to obtain that
name.
one center, right? Like, they're constantly in on that.
Because they never seem to have it. They never seem to have that big first-line center. Although maybe Nick Suzuki could be that, so you might have him, but I don't know.
If I'm Columbus, though, like, I don't see how Nick Suzuki would fit in a John Tortorella system. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy who would thrive for him. I mean, maybe
I mean, that is a fair comment, but I don't think I think it comes down to the same thing as always, right? Like, best player available. Take best player. It doesn't matter. You will make it work. You can find ways to make those work if you take your best player. The Jackets are very much likely once they do trade Dubois, just kind of entering another era where they're kind of rebuilding a little bit, because I mean, he's their best player, he's their first line center. What are you going to do? You have Max Domi, but that's not enough. You're going to run into that. I have not read the new 31 Thoughts, so I don't know if they have anything new on that yet, because I know Elliot Friedman's been on top of the Dubois stuff. Beat. Yeah,
the PLB.
I don't know, but hey, when it comes to the Canadiens right now, they're getting a lot of scoring from all over their lineup, which has been kind of...
They're a deep team. They're a really deep team.
A very suddenly deep team, because they weren't last year. They weren't deep last year. They were very clearly very much we have a couple guys who can put the puck in the net, and that's about it sort of thing.
And now suddenly it's like everyone's firing on all cylinders. Like, whereas the Canucks are, like, struggling to just get the offense out of one line, the Habs are just, like, coming at you in waves somehow out of nowhere.
Yeah, they're finding ways. They're finding new creative ways to get goal scoring, and a lot of goal scoring. It's not just like, they're getting shared group for like a couple, like 2-0, 3-0, like 2-1-0, like 2-1 games or something, right? They're scoring at will, almost. Like, they crushed the Oilers over the last two games. They looked like they really showed. They showed very clearly what the difference between incredible, like, very good, solid goaltending and inconsistent goaltending was. Yeah. And more importantly, what a team with four lines when you're four lines deep can do, even against a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl too. When that a team that's as top heavy, what difference that can make. Because again, the Canadiens don't have one forward, like, as great as Nick Suzuki seems like he can be. As much as I love Thomas Tatar, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is supposed to be pretty good as he gets going. Drouin, they have, like, names. They have some good names. We love Brendan Gallagher, obviously, here in Vancouver. They don't have a superstar. They don't have a superstar. They don't have an Elias Pettersson comparison.
Suzuki will be that for them if they stick with him.
He very well could be. But, like, right now, he's not there. Right now, he's not there yet.
Give it to the end of the season. He will be. When he carries his team with his more than point per game stats.
They don't have him. They don't have an Austin Matthews. They don't have a McDavid. They don't have that guy. Which, to be fair, not a lot of teams do. No. Not a lot of teams have that guy. But they're very much a team of their four lines built just seem to be getting things done. Like, looking at their lineup right now, how many players do you think have no points on the Canadiens right now? Like, out of the players that have played in the roster, out of the, let's see, how many we got here?
If we're going 23 in Taxi Squad, I would say
no. Ignore Taxi Squad entirely.
And then I would say out of the 23,
just the lineup. Yeah,
I'm gonna say 6 don't have points.
As far as the players who have all played, who have played games are concerned, Three only have
really?
three don't have points. Those three are Joel Armia, Ben Sherratt, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Everyone else has played 3 games and has at least 1 point. They're the only 3 missing.
Armia and Sherratt are very good players. Armia especially is I was sad to see, like, part of me being upset about Stastny leaving is that the team gave Armia away for free, basically, to the Habs so that they could have the cap space to sign Stastny, and he left anyway.
Yeah, for the Jets, yeah. Yeah, and I think Ben Sherratt is also a former Jet, so they're two former Jets.
He was signed as a UFA. So.
Do you know who Montreal's leading point getter is right now?
It's probably it's either Jeff Petrie or Tatar, right?
It is either one. It is one of those two. Yes,
I would say Petrie.
It is Petrie. By 2 whole points. He's got 5 points. Tatar is second with 3 points. He's tied. He's in a 4-way tie for second with Shea Weber, Nick Suzuki, and Jonathan Drouin. Again,
good for him.
That's how evenly they're scoring right now, and they're getting points.
Need. That's what they need in a truncated season. Like, you need
everyone contributing.
You need everyone contributing, and that's what one of the problems with the Canucks in the bubble playoffs is that it was basically just let's get the top line scoring, and the second it dried up, they couldn't compete, and they had nothing for Vegas.
Yeah.
And so
they ran out of gas, and that in a way that was to be expected, but also it's as you kind of replace the older guys, you should get more energy out of them, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's kind of where it's the opposite right now. It's just no one's firing right now.
Tyler Toffoli is on line 3 for the Montreal Canadiens, just so we're clear, and playing on his wrong side, or
that's
playing
what I mean.
He's
that's
playing
what we
left
mean
wing.
By saying
he's playing left wing. Yeah, they're a deep team. Which okay, man, when JT Miller was missing, it really would have been nice to have Tyler Toffoli step in on that first left wing, wouldn't it? For a couple games, wouldn't it?
That's kind of nice. The scary thing about the Canucks too is
oh, we're gonna go back to
Miller,
this now. I'm so sorry.
I don't really.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
Well, I'm gonna just quick bit, and then we'll move on to other news.
Yes.
But the Miller injury should have proved to any Canucks that said the Canucks don't have depth or cap issues, just how dire things are.
Yes,
they lose one player out of their top 6, and they have nothing.
Yes.
Absolutely,
even if the top 6 wasn't as cold as they had gone, because they went uncharacteristically cold.
Yeah.
Even with Miller back, it was the same way.
Yeah.
It still showed just how differently the team looks without one player, which is you can't win that. You can't win championships that way.
Mm-hmm. And you just see it when you have Tyler Mott getting floated from the 4th line into your top 6, and he does nothing. He has absolutely nothing to offer either line.
Which you can't I'm almost kind of well, of course he doesn't. That's unfair.
Yeah,
that's unfair of you to expect.
It's you look at a Canadiens team and you're okay,
they've got a great look. They've got a great looking group right now. I mean, you have a third line of Tyler Toffoli, Kotkaniemi centering Toffoli and Joel Armia. That's a good third line that can score. That can score and also is not a minus in your own end. That's a great
third line.
I love Toffoli and how hard he worked in his own end of the ice. I loved that aspect of his game. It worked fantastically. I loved having him, especially on Bo Horvat's wing. I loved him on that second line pair. Now you have him with Kotkaniemi, who's a bit of a younger guy who might not necessarily be the best in his own end. Yeah, he might not necessarily be the best in his own end.
Yeah.
Now you have Toffoli to fix that, and Joel Armia, I believe, is kind of in a similar boat there.
Well, you just
this is the kind of thing that the Canucks are going to have a tough time with, is being able to hold the fort down against a team that has as many decent scoring lines as they've got on the Habs, as well as the defense that's looking pretty good. Even I know a lot of people had questions about Joel Edmondson and how much money they gave him and everything, but he's been fine. He's been fine.
There's the on-ice results, and then there's the contracts they actually use to obtain those on-ice results, and they're never going to match. But what they've acquired in depth is completely worth it.
Yes.
The money right now, like whatever, like they're on a finite timeline with Carey Price's contract, and before he's just like completely falls off, and that deal becomes a nightmare.
Yes.
And the way that they've constructed their bottom six to a point where, like you said, Toffoli's on a third line with Kotkaniemi and Armia, like that's huge. So like if Brendan Gallagher or Josh Anderson or Drouin or Tatar, they get injured, you have fucking Toffoli waiting to slide up, and he can. That's
he
huge.
Definitely can. Yes.
Like we saw, Miller's gone. Okay, it's Virtanen or Mott.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge difference in depth and depth.
Yes.
And
big difference. And we're going to talk about the Colorado Avalanche at some point tonight. So there's that too, and we can discuss depth there too. Because I mean, holy cow, that's depth. That's depth to an even whole other level. But the Canucks are going to have a difficult time in that regard, where they're going to be up against a team with plenty of depth that's going to be coming in feeling very good about themselves. Yeah. If you're Vancouver, you got to throw them off quickly. You got to really make them distrust their own abilities as much as you possibly can, because otherwise you are facing a team that's feeling very confident and will more or less score at will on you, as they've shown against the Oilers that they can do. They've gotten a few breaks in terms of just lucky shots and everything, but still, like there was like one, I think he banked it, like one shot where he tried to like center it and banked off a skate and in past Koskinen, right? Like it's not like, those are the kinds of shots that they can, but hey, it's going in, they're feeling good about themselves. Montreal has very good goaltending as well, so you're gonna have a very even matchup with goaltending, even with a back-to-back, because Jake Allen's looked all right. Jake Allen from the Blues series, obviously last year, he has no problem playing against the Canucks. He did quite well against them for most of that series. Yeah. You really need to especially for the way the Canucks have been of late, you really need to try and just find a way to really get that energy back, especially the energy that they had during the playoffs, because right now it's gone. You need to find that luck again and again. I hope that coming back home, and again, this is their first game in Vancouver since March 10th, 11th of last year against the Islanders. So I really hope that at the very least, even with no fans in the building, that playing in the building that you know and that you practice in every single week, with the boards that you know and everything, and just everything that you recognize and all the familiarities of playing in your home arena, I feel like it could give them the jolt that they need to kind of start getting things back on track.
Well, fingers crossed that it does.
Fingers crossed.
So other NHL news, just a couple things here. We saw the Nashville game get postponed today.
Yes,
which
Hurricanes.
It's not necessarily the Nashville's fault. The Hurricanes had several players admitted into COVID protocol.
Yes,
and that happening that delays their game, and it might, depending on like any kind of interactions that happened, it might delay Dallas's home opener.
Yes.
I don't know how it would. I think Nashville's flying into Dallas anyways, just to like get prepared, and this game will get postponed to another time.
Yes.
But just like the one reason we kind of really brought it up is that Dallas was like advertising selling individual tickets for the game. And it's just like, your whole season was delayed to the 19th and then delayed again to the 22nd. Like
now you want to bring more people into the building?
You know what's a good idea? Having fans in the building. Like give your heads a shake, dude. Like, do you need to make cash that easily? Like, you just have no regard for player safety at this point, or like the safety of like your employees at this point. Like, it's just such a dipshit thing to do.
Yeah, at the very least, it's tone deaf. It's very much a. It's very much the. Do you not see the irony here of you like having all your players test positive for COVID and then selling tickets to these games that are supposed to be in front of nobody?
That should have happened weeks ago too. It's just like,
yes, like oops, yeah, maybe don't, at least for like a month, maybe don't, and that like, well, and they even I forget whose article I was reading. Whose column I was reading, but they talked about, but Nashville actually talked about how they're allowed to have fans in the building, but they said no, because
Good.
they've said specifically because and they're like because the Tennessee Titans have had like the NFL team had fans to COVID full capacity, which was actually like 2,000 people or something, but still more than 2,000 more people than you should. Mm-hmm. And the Predators were just like, look, this community's been through a lot because there was the whole there was like a shooting on Christmas Day, I believe, in Nashville or something.
There was that bomb that went off.
The bombing, that's right. Yeah. And they were like, look, they literally were like, look, our community has suffered enough. We are not gonna put any more danger out there, so we're not letting people in at least for a month or two. Yeah. And I'm like, good. Thank you for understanding why this matters. Why that matters at the end of the day. And you hope maybe Dallas gives their head a little bit of a shake. And from the Hurricane standpoint, because I believe it's Warren Fogle, Jakob Slavin, Jordan Martinook, and Teuvo Teravainen, who are all jumping in on a protocol. Good amount of players, very good players for that team missing. You hope it's nothing serious, and you hope the Hurricanes are able to start playing again as soon as possible. And again, I believe that as we get farther into the year, things will be fine for the most part. I think all that stuff will be ironed out as we get into the middle of the season. But hopefully, for now, people are okay and are safe and everything.
Yeah. So speaking of players coming back and playing safely, it looks like it's Bowen Byram time in the Colorado Avalanche system. They made a trade today to get rid of Ian Cole in exchange for Greg Patterin, who's depth.
Fine. He's fine. And
it's definitely a move to just be like, we want to get Bowen Byram into some games. That's my vibe for this one.
Yes, the most important part about this is that Greg Patterin, I believe, is on an expiring contract for starters. Mm-hmm. So and takes up less cap room than Ian Cole. Although I believe the Avs are retaining some salary on this contract, or 800K retained. So not a whole lot, but amount.
A decent amount.
In amount. Ian Cole's contract runs through also a UFA deal, but it frees up room, at least it frees up a roster spot theoretically for Bowen Byram. However, I did see a transaction tweet today that apparently in terms of this trade, the Avalanche actually took off their taxi squad Dennis Gilbert, not Bowen Byram. They called up a different defenseman to take that spot, which is interesting. They also have Connor Timmins, so they also have that as well. But oh my God, you have Bowen Byram just sitting as a 10th option? Go to hell. Go to hell, you. Yeah. This sucks. This is and this poses my question. Are the Colorado Avalanche the best team in the Western Conference right now?
Well, under the old rules of the Western Conference, they probably are.
Or the Western Division.
Or Vegas, I
should say. Or Vegas under Colorado, same division now. So they're in the same division, yeah.
Right. So if we're going the new West or whatever, the Wiki Wild West, I would have to say, I still actually probably say Vegas, just based off of the fact that their team is fucking stacked. And they are running a goalie tandem of Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury. And they picked up Alex Pietrangelo casually in the offseason. That team is gross. I loathe them. So
see, I think the Canucks did a lot of damage to the Knights a little bit mentally. Okay. Well, because remember, keep in mind, when they did the whole Pietrangelo thing, because they kind of were like, oh, we need another one. We need another big guy, fish to fry. And when they upon trading Nate Schmidt to get him, a bunch of the Knights were like, what the hell? We signed all these contracts, and now you're getting rid of us and it caused some friction.
I will stop you there quickly just to say, I think that's also a great motivating factor where all these guys that are signed to the team are like, I better try to win now because they might trade me next season. So
that's true. That is possible.
It's like fire under the heels. Like, hey, if you don't win a cup with us, we're going to get rid of you for the next shiny toy.
Right. But I look at a team like Colorado and just the fact that they're so good already. And they aren't even at full potential yet. Like, not even close. Because, again, they have Connor Timmins, who I don't believe in their lineup yet. Who's supposed to be decent. Or he might be on their third pairing now. They have Bowen Byram just sitting there. A 4th overall defenseman who I've seen play for the Giants. He's fantastic. He's a great defenseman. Yeah. And obviously everybody saw World Juniors for the last couple of years as well. And then, again, just sitting in there, among the guys who are sitting, waiting in the wings right now, you have Shane Bowers just sitting there, waiting to go. You have, who else we got here? We got a couple names here. Like, Mika Salamaki. He's supposed to be decent, I believe. There's a couple. I guess there's a few less guys right now, but there's, like, some guys who are coming through the system. They're supposed to be pretty darn good.
The main one.
And they have Cale Makar.
The most important one, they have Alex Newhook just waiting in the wings, which is
Alex Newhook. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so their pipeline is disgusting. Their top line is gross, but they got a lot of cap finagling to do pretty quickly once I think Rantanen's coming up or Landeskog or I don't even remember, but like
I got their cap friendly out here. Landeskog and Brandon Saad are both up next year. They have Brandon Saad. I forgot about that.
So that'll tie into our next little segment here. Today we both learned NHL. People that we forgot moved to other teams. We both forgot that Alex Galchenyuk was an Ottawa Senator.
Was this his first game as a Senator today when they played against Winnipeg? You're obviously listening to this tomorrow, so this would be tomorrow. This would be yesterday's game against the Jets.
You know, it's funny. I just tried to open up the Montreal Canadiens elite prospects to see
because Alex
first game.
Okay,
even though I just said it.
That was like 5 teams ago. Get with the program because he's played. Let's see, Pittsburgh, Arizona. I think he went. Was he? No, he wasn't a Panther. He wasn't a Panther, was he? No. That's how many teams it's been. He
seems like a type that would be for like 3 games.
Literally, the Penguins and the Panthers trade pretty regularly.
He was on the Minnesota Wild.
That's right. He was a Wild. He played against the Canucks in the playoffs this year. I totally forgot about that.
It was his first game, apparently. So that was his first game. That's why we were
so that tracks why we didn't know he was a Senator, but he's a Senator now, which blew my mind. There's so many players that you could do that for this year. I mean, Joe Thornton is a Leaf. I completely forgot about that up until like a few days ago when all the Toronto websites started like talking about it at nausea.
Look at Joe. We've got it on our team.
I mean, as somebody who watched Jumbo Joe for a long time in San Jose, I'm a little bit like, oh, you're gonna put him with Matthews and Marner on line 1. Okay, good luck with that. He's a little old. He's cool. He's a great leader, just not always there anymore. Although I will say this, I was at the game a couple years ago where he scored a hat trick. So I was at that game against the Bruins. And then that shot where you see him like, as he sees himself on the Jumbotron. Like, that was at that game. That was a cool game. That was one of the best hockey games I've ever been to, actually. Both teams were nuts. There are so many players you could do that with this year.
It was like almost impossible to keep up.
And because of the extended off season, you just couldn't tell. You were just kind of like, there's another, like, who is another big name that I just forgot? Like, I mean, Pietrangelo, I forgot was
I forgot he was a Golden Knight.
Pretty much, was a Golden Knight. And then we obviously just did Saad. There's so many of them.
Not helping that too was that after like all these big trades and stuff were made, there was like 2.5 months of just dead silence from the NHL and its team. So it was kind of like easy to like forget all the big news that happened in like such a short window.
Yes. You know who I do want to touch on? I know we're kind of running near to the end of the show here. Yeah. There is one other player I did want to talk about very briefly, just because he's gotten a lot of attention lately, and I had not heard much about him beforehand. And that's Kirill Kaprizov, the rookie on the Wild.
The Wild player who's like really rad. Yeah.
Who's really rad and all of a sudden is like shooting up into the Calder track. Like I think he's the top Calder candidate right now.
If you can make the Minnesota Wild fun to watch,
entertaining, yes,
then you deserve every award imaginable, because
yes, take them
Wild
all.
hockey is so crap and has been for years and years.
Such a slog.
So he deserves his own trophy, like,
I say it
just for being so fun. like it's a picture of a birthday cake with someone blowing out the top of it, like thanks.
Yeah,
that's what it needs to be.
Look, the Minnesota Wild, one of their main colors. I say this all the time. They're a team that one of their main colors is beige. Like, it's basically exactly. Beige. Like, of course they're not good. Of course they're
dark green.
Hey, the dark green's nice. I like. It the is dark a nice green, but like, I like the dark green.
There's nothing like exciting about it.
Even the bear head logo.
The bear head, like it's a bear, and it's so boring somehow.
Yeah. Apparently, it's also not a bear. Like it's a bear, but it's also not one. It's a This is a new animal we made. Yeah, this is a new animal we made.
I know.
Dude, it's a bear. It's a bear. Get over yourself.
Anyways, we don't want to talk about the Wild too much, because
we don't want to talk about the Wild too much.
We'll lull ourselves to sleep, so we'll end on
4 points in 3 games. 4 points in 3 games for Kaprizov, and I believe one of them was an OT winner, which was his first NHL goal.
And
Holy
his goals
cow,
are
keep
like
an eye on
highlight
him.
reel, like awesome. They're super sweet. So
you might have to watch Wild games, people. You might.
I know. So we'll end off with a quick one, just like because everyone's talking about it. It's a hilarious video of Jakub Voracek going off on a reporter that he's set his sights on. I kind of looked into the history of this.
Okay, please enlighten me, because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, so allegedly the guy that was asking Jacob Voracek questions. So if you haven't seen the video, a reporter gets called upon in one of these Zoom press conferences and asks him, like, what's it like adapting to the new schedule, or what, like
some very normal hockey question,
super basic question. And Voracek is just like, I wasn't even going to answer your question because you're such a piece of shit. and then he does answer the question because he's like a professional, sort of.
Yeah.
And then he's like, ugh, you know what? I didn't even want to have to answer your question because you're just a fucking weasel who's going to write like garbage, basically.
And I'm making the faces right now that Travis Konechny was making, sitting right next to him in this interview. You see him like almost like choke up his water. You're like, wait, what did you just say, Jakub? Yeah. What are you saying?
So I looked into the background, and like allegedly like the writer has had like a long history over the past 2 years of writing articles that are all like, Voracek's the reason they haven't won a cup. Voracek's lazy. Voracek and Giroux are a joke for not taking their roles as seriously with Alain Vigneault and stuff like that. So it's just like a bunch of nagging things from Voracek that I guess he just like got fed up and saw his opportunity to be like, fuck you, dude. Mm-hmm. Which, I don't know, like, you have to be such a wimp to like spaz out like that on like a public PR thing, like those Q&A things. Just give him a basic, like the worst answer. Give him a yes or no answer, basically, that he can't use for his own story. But like to make it that big of a deal, I don't know, it's kind of like over the top. In my opinion, at least. It's extra, as the kids say.
Okay. Was it extra? Yes, I'll say that. It was funny. It was funny.
Yeah,
but
it's really funny. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, but I also think of like stick up for yourself here. Like if a guy's gonna be like it was maybe he went too far, but I'm also just kind of the mindset of like, why does it have to be so one-sided? Like why is if especially with Voracek, like I don't believe Voracek has had any sort of past history of screaming at a reporter. Does he? Does he have another one?
He doesn't have a history of screaming at a reporter, but according to the boys at Roxy Fever, via Mallory at Sport Lesbian on Twitter, apparently
shout out, Mal.
Voracek was known for like a couple of years ago or whatever at the World Cup. He was up at like 5 a.m, like just going off on random people on Twitter that are like complete nobodies for saying he sucked.
Okay, well that's a bit different.
He takes criticism a little too seriously.
That does change things a little. That does change my opinion a little bit, because I'm of the mindset like, okay, if it's not a pattern for you, if this is just a one-off kind of thing where you've had it with this one person, like, okay, like I think everyone's entitled to every now and then a little bit of a I'm sick of your shit moment. Yeah. Sometime, like, as long as you're not just doing it as long as you're not doing it on a regular basis, like,
if he did it every press conference, like
okay,
not Tortorella last year, but like the year before, when like every press conference he was just like, I'm not going to give media or reporters absolutely anything to work with.
Yeah,
I'm going to go out of my way to be a dick and prevent them from being able to do their jobs. Then it's like, is it an issue?
Yeah, and I saw some people like making the comparison of like, oh, why are people always ragging on Tortorella versus like giving Voracek a pat on the back? Like, I saw some people kind of taking that particular argument, like specifically with Torts, and I was like, well, because Torts has a habit, like it's a habit with him. I don't know, it hasn't happened in a while, I don't believe, but he's done it on a regular basis to the point where it's like, it's just being a jerk to a point, right? Like, it's one thing to just it's one thing to have one moment where you're just like, I can't take this anymore, I need to say something. And there was that one reporter who was like, he should have said, if he had a problem with him, he should have said it to his face. It's like, oh yes, that's very easy to do when media and players aren't allowed in the same room ever anymore. Yes, that's very easy for him to do. What, do you want him to like FaceTime him or something? That's kind of my thought process on it. If now the Twitter thing does change it a little bit for me, because that does sense not a pattern necessarily, but you've done this before,
like a maturity or like a temper kind of thing.
Yes,
where you're just
that does a bit. That does. I'm kind of like concerned, but you know, I don't know. Maybe I just don't know much about it, but he's used it now. He can't do it again. He can't do it again.
Long story short, it's really funny. I encourage everyone to watch the video just for the novelty of it. It is so outrageous and over the top, and it's like a great laugh just because it's unbelievable.
Yes.
Like the reaction from Travis Konechny or whatever is just so perfect.
That's the best part. It's art. It's art. You just notice a new detail every time, and you're just like, oh my god! And it's just like, oh, it's beautiful to look at.
It's art. Well, speaking of art, this was a pretty decent episode to do. Like, all things considered, I was kind of like spending the day just going like, ugh, I don't want to talk about how crappy those two games were. Like, they were so bad.
But we found a lot of good things to
make it interesting
about.
And that is the thing we can say about even the games when they're bad. Like, there's still a lot to take away from it and to talk about, because there's just so many nuances to like the way that they're not playing well, and like you can see like all the little things that will lead to them maybe like progressing and like getting out of this little slump that they're in. And as we said earlier, it's just 4 games in, so we gotta chill,
relax,
relax, shotgun some beers, folks, relax a bit, get some edibles from your local shop. Working on that sponsorship still.
Oh my god, or you can do like me and just eat a lot of sugar. That's that also works.
But yeah, we
and happy also, just quickly before we get out of here, happy anniversary to the John Tortorella rushing the locker room at the Canucks at the Canucks Flames 8 years ago, I believe. It was 8, I think they said on the broadcast.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. I've seen the fake wall that is now in between the home and road locker rooms. I've seen it, people. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful shiny wall you have security guards making sure you just can't cross it. It's great. Yeah. It's great, and it's that one mix, that one audio mix. I love that so much. I've had that in my
that's fire. It's a hot.
I had that in my iTunes. I had that in my iTunes in 2014. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Well, guys, we really appreciate you guys listening to tonight's episode. As always, if you want to catch us on our Patreon, we just dropped an episode as earlier discussed. It's a really fun get to know you video or audio piece where we just kind of play 22 questions, not 21, 22. We tried to get under 33 minutes, but we ran a little long, as we usually do.
I believe it clocked in at
around 45, which worked out numbers wise, because Sedins played with Michael
Michael
Chaput, who wore
Chaput.
number 45.
Yeah.
So it all worked out as we planned to plan for our failure. So it all works out. And those kinds of failures and successes you can find on our Patreon, where we have $1 tiers and $5 tiers.
Yes.
And any support is much appreciated. We really appreciate it. Lachlan, where can they find you on the social media networks?
You can find me at Lach and the Crease on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can find my work at lachandthecrease.com. I'm doing my North Division power rankings, and I'm gonna have some regular old articles coming out this week as well.
Hell yeah, dude. You can catch me at Cody Sievertson on Twitter. You will not catch me on Instagram ever. And you can catch.
You don't have to mention that at this point.
I'm gonna keep mentioning it every time. That's gonna be my thing. You can catch my writing at cometsharvest.com. Looks like I'll be covering a couple AHL teams this year. Not too happy about that, but we'll see depending on how the rosters shake out. Till then, folks, we will see you on Friday or Saturday morning when we release our Friday review of the first 2 games of the Habs series. So looking forward to that, guys. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Bye.